Hi everyone, Big Thinny Kiss Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new gospel album, The Loser. Okay, let's take a trip down memory lane on this one. Post-hardcore, a genre that dates back to the 1980s, but the late 90s to mid-2000s or so was also a peak time for the genre creatively. Sure, that's around when it also saw some of its highest peaks of commercial success, but there were also countless underground bands at the time, not just building on the philosophical and aggressive ethos of hardcore punk, but also the versatility of post-hardcore groups to come before them, such as Husker Du and Fugazi. Now, in the process, this newer generation of bands would sometimes push things into noisier, more experimental, or more progressive territory, major examples being bands like The Refused, or At the Drive-In and Mars Volta. Some of the bands that burned the brightest artistically during this time also burned the fastest, and gospel was one of those bands. They first formed in 2003, and up until now, their only album was their 2005 debut, The Moon is a Dead Wound, which was a mathy and progressive blend of screamo and post-hardcore, serving as one of the best records in both of those genres during that decade. And at the time, the band seemed like they were set up for long-term success. That record did get some positive reception. Kurt Ballou of Converge produced the album as well, and around that time, the band had toured with Converge too. But about a year later, the band did call it quits. The most specific and public acknowledgments as to why mostly seem to chalk it up to different creative visions for the group and their music. But it would seem after a brief reunion about 10 years ago, the band is actually finally back. They dropped 2 teasers to this LP earlier in the year, and this record just kind of came out on Bandcamp in the midst of May. It's 8 tracks, 40 minutes, and I was just reminded this past week to check it out, and I'm glad I did, because shit, this is a good comeback. And it's funny because on this LP, gospel doesn't even sound exactly like they did on their debut, so it's not even like I'm necessarily psyched to hear them sound like their old selves per se. Of course, there's elements of progressive rock and screamo and post-hardcore flowing throughout this thing, but Adam Dooling has switched things up quite a bit vocally this time around, favoring more expressive shouts over the throat-shredding screams that you may have heard on numerous tracks from the debut. And instrumentally, it seems like the band is leaning even further into the proggier elements of their sound, as well as keyboards and synths, while also taking the name of their band more literally than I think they ever have before. Meaning that when I listen to the intro track, Bravo, the tight bass lines, muscular drums, manic yelling, and bright church-style organs make me feel like I'm listening to a post-hardcore style sermon set in some kind of punk megachurch. Proclamations of "Behold" and "I feel so alive" in the lyrics only intensify these feelings. And of course, the band's progressive rock bona fides leave the 4 minutes this song lasts feeling ever-evolving, multifaceted, edge of your seat. The performance and building chord progressions on the track are just incredible. Few bands have come back this hard after a studio album hiatus this long. So yeah, it's a good intro to the record, and I think gospel delivers on the rest of the album as well, like with the righteous riffs and dizzying keyboard arpeggios trading off on the song DEERGHOST. No shade against the debut with this track, but I feel like this song exemplifies the band kind of having a higher level of musicianship and chemistry together this time around. It's really impressive and kind of makes the record how the band is able to so fluidly play through these intense groove changes and hammer out builds that already start on 7 and slowly work their way up to 11 in these exhilarating intensity peaks. Not to mention Dooley acts consistently across this LP as a fantastic conduit for each song's ferocity and passion. We also have the punk prog synth odyssey that is the song Hyper. The song sounds like it's set in fucking space. It's great. The church organs return for another hardcore sermon on the song S.R.O, with blast beats and verses on the front end that read like an ode to aging while also giving into the madness of some kind of past trauma, with chilling lyrics like "All my enemies, they are imaginary, all my demons, they are real as day." These ramblings eventually giving way to super grim and proggy guitar leads in the second half, as well as dramatic woodwind flavored keys that sound like something out of the Led Zeppelin or I don't know, Jethro Tull playbook, but they're pulled off so well in a hardcore context. Now, the second half of this LP is packed with strong moments too, whether that be the song Tango, whose intro lyrics are collectively chanted as if they are a prayer. From there are some amazing and insane riff and groove shifts to follow. Plus, the way the organs rush in eventually and sync up with those drums so well, I feel like I'm listening to a combination of some kind of spiritual transcendence, but then also some crazy 60s acid rock group that's in the middle of the most intense jam of their lives. White Spaces, with its relentless screams and heavy riffs, makes for the most aggressive moment on this LP, maybe the closest to a genuine callback to their debut album, though the brevity of the song kind of prevents it from being as epic as many other tracks here. I suppose the vocals also go a bit too off the rails on the back end. Still though, you can't say it's not cathartic. By that same token, the song Metallic Olives almost overstays its welcome with an almost 2-minute intro, and, you know, granted, it is a hell of an intro. The drums, the organ chord changes, it's just quite a build. But then the awkward and yelpy vocal passages and lumbering riffs that come in after are sort of a meager transition. The jammier passages where the drums and guitars bounce different grooves off of each other are okay. It's kind of diminishing returns when they come back around for a second time. Still, I do like the return of lyrical themes on this track, like thriving and being alive. And then the band finishes things off with a strong closer, Warm Bed, which is not just a sinister moment musically, but narratively as well, illustrating this picture of someone who is pretty much a criminal piece of trash who's never home, but yet in this moment is coming home to take when there is nothing to give. It's quite dark and quite awful, but the story ties in with the intensity of the instrumental so well. And yeah, that is this impressive ass return record from fucking Gospel, man. Damn. I mean, me and thousands of other people probably thought these guys were going to forever be one of those, you know, weird one-off bands lost in the history books of post-hardcore. They actually came through with a great sophomore record almost 20 years later, and it rocks. And it is genuinely one of the most impressive combos of hardcore and progressive rock I think I've heard. So let's hope we get another record sooner rather than later, I guess, but this one will be very fine to listen to for quite a while right now. I'm feeling a decent 2-strong 8 on this transition. Have you given this LP a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Gospel, forever.